What does basic human rights and Sergio Perez have in common? It's simple: wins. If you haven't noticed, this season and many seasons other, whenever there is a race that Sergio Perez does well, it is always, or even wins, it is always in a country with little to no basic human rights. Now, I mean, look at Saudi Grand Prix. Wins, does pretty well. Baku wins. And then look, all of these have in common basic human rights. Now, if we look at what he did in Canada, he did shit. We look at Monaco, what happened? He fucked himself into a wall, showing everyone Red Bull's floor. He did shit. But now let's talk about the main girth of this story. So, Red Bull cheating? Is Red Bull cheating? Their car good? Red Bull cheating? People keep on saying, is Red Bull cheating? You ask Toto Wolff, is Red Bull cheating? I think, in a way, they are. But now, before the Verstappen fans and Red Bull fans just want to hop on my dick and try to beat me to death.
What do you mean by that?
Let me explain myself. So, for this, we have to go back all the way to last year, to the cost cap gate. So, last year, Toto Wolff was having an aneurysm, basically saying nonstop that Red Bull is cheating, whilst Mercedes is doing complete utter shit. Now, to shut up Toto Wolff, he's been doing it nonstop. We go to Japan, where the FIA finally tries to shut up Toto Wolff and say, hey, Red Bull never won over the cost cap. Yeah, we'll help them, we'll shut Toto Wolff up. And as per usual, Christian Horner runs his mouth and then threatens to actually sue Toto. FIA looks into it, and then they release the documents. Red Bull then turns out to have gone $500,000 over the cost cap in mostly catering food. They didn't want their employees to be like a Chinese 9-year-old in a sweatshop working for Nike, sweating their asses off and only getting paid 11 pennies per day. But this is my question. How do you spend $500,000 over the budget for food? How many Lizzos do you need to reach that amount to go over that budget? That's my question. How many Lizzos do you need? Now, this extra $500,000, you may be saying, oh, that's nothing, that's nothing, that's, nah, nah, nah. So this extra $50,000, $500,000 allowed Red Bull to do more expensive upgrades throughout the season, basically. That's what the major problem is, and where it could be considered cheating. Now that we know that Red Bull was cheating, what do we think the FIA did? Now, they did kick out Michael Massey after he managed to fuck up the 2021 Abu Dhabi Championship final. Instead, they kicked him out, and then we got a mentally challenged individuals. Unfortunately, they don't really have a lot going on through their mind. So, knowing that they don't really know how to conduct races compared to Michael Massey, if we had Michael Massey, I swear the season would be so much better. I'm telling you, it would have been 10 times better. But we don't, because he fucked himself over and lost his job. So we know we have two retards in the FIA currently. And the question is, what will be the first ever penalty for it? Will it be like a harsh penalty where, they're trying to tell other teams not to go over? No. Instead, they gave Red Bull, who's the leading team by a very large margin, a $7 million fine. Keep in mind, Red Bull and Oracle, the oil company, is combined over probably a multi-billion-dollar company. But to them, $7 million is like a slap on the wrist. If this was MoneyGram Haas team, it would be a very big deal for them. But it's Red Bull, a multi-billion-dollar, so it's a slap on the wrist. And they lose a little amount of time in the wind tunnel of the little amount of time in the wind tunnel that they already had since they were leading the championship by a far margin. So they already knew that they weren't going to have a lot of tunnel time. But it gets better. Now, the British fuck named Christian Horner was still running his mouth about this incident, and he still claims they weren't cheating, but I mean, You kind of got proved wrong. But now, how does this correlate into this current season? So, like how this guy opened the pack and got a rookie Saddam Hussein card.
Saddam Hussein rookie card!
Red Bull Racing and this penalty is basically like Saddam Hussein. Saddam invaded Kuwait for oil and being at war for Iran for like 10 years with nothing happening, then leaving that to then invade Kuwait. And then, the US and many other countries in the largest coalition since World War II basically told Saddam to fuck off, and he didn't fuck off. And then, they kind of got fucked. And then the US then lied about Saddam having weapons of mass destruction. Uh, and then they kind of fucked Saddam and Iraq in total. And then they got fucked, which then led Iraq to become a cesspool for domestic terrorism, leading to yet another war, and then another war, and then another war, and then another war. But now coming back to normal. What I'm trying to say is at the end of each season, you have two options: to keep the car design that you basically made from scratch, but tweak it in a few ways to make it better and put a little bit of upgrades into it. Or the other option you can do is you can basically shove this away, and now you got this, and you can make a brand new car with that. So instead of the FIA for the penalty saying, you can take this car. You can't use this car anymore that you used for that championship and throw it away. They just and start a new one. They didn't do that, so Red Bull basically still has the advantages from spending $500,000 over the limit because they still have the same car but better upgraded, whilst the other competition didn't get that chance. So Red Bull is basically still benefiting off of the extra $500,000 they spent last, which is basically helping and causing Red Bull to be one of the top highest teams by a far margin yet again. Now, I'm not necessarily blaming Red Bull. I'm saying they're still cheating because they technically are still cheating, but at the same time, they're still not also cheating because I'm mostly blaming the FIA for being a bunch of mentally challenged individuals. Basically, because they gave Red Bull a slap on the wrist, a multi-billion-dollar company slap on the wrist, and then also prevent them from using the same old car which they benefited off of the 500,000 extra dollars that the teams were complaining about. So in reality, Red Bull didn't even get a penalty, but in fact got an advantage card for the next season to dominate, which they are now doing. If that makes sense. That's what I'm blaming. I'm not saying that. But in short, yes, Red Bull is cheating, but also Red Bull is not cheating. If that makes any sense. I don't think that makes sense, but that's basically what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.